Welcome. We bid you welcome. John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Tech, coming to you from my music corner of the world. And in the corner to my, I guess on my screen, it's to my right, but I look at it, if I'm looking at the screen, it's to my left. Peter Jones back for another round. The music professor, as I'm going to start calling him, because he just laid a master class for Hellbent for Leather. Peter, how you doing, my friend?
Great, John. Mr. Music Nut, nice to see you as well, sir. Pleasure
And
to be here.
And then, of course, in the other corner, my faithful co-captain on these Wednesday night shows, John the Music Nut. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Peter and John. How are you both doing?
Awesome.
My ears are still recovering from Friday night SmackDown, but it's okay. I got through it all, and you'll see Joe B and I talk about that later this week. But that's for another story, another time, because this is the year of the priest, baby. We ain't talking wrestling tonight. We're going to just have a little roundtable discussion where we're not going to be going track by track per se, but I'm going to let the music professor take over because we're going to be talking about a little Unleashed in the East. All right. So recorded. The only thing I'm going to say before I turn it over to Peter is, of course, recorded in February 1979. So almost 45 years.
Will be 45th anniversary.
45th anniversary of the recording coming up here shortly.
Yep.
Released September 17th, 1979. So without further ado, and I should mention this charted pretty nicely too for them. Charted number 70 on the US charts, number 10 on the UK, 41 in Japan. Yeah. Surprisingly that it did that low in Japan as where that was recorded. And hey, Canada broke the November 73, but I think that's a different type of chart. But that's that's the charts. So Peter, take it away, my friend. Let's hear it.
Thank you. So we have a moment in time here where coming off of two very prominent and successful and upward trajectory going studio records, right? We get to the Killing Machine tour, which is where we are on Unleashed in the East. Now, this is a tale of Japan, and we have to start there because this is really where the genesis of all this came. It turned out that the tour previous, they were unsuspectedly greeted with extreme pleasure and excitement, and the tour went well so that by the time they come back here in early 79, they're headlining. So they're now doing full tour and full shows here in Japan way before they're doing it anywhere else on the globe. And part of the deal, not unlike what happened with Deep Purple's Made in Japan way back in 72, Priest comes in and they are notified as they come to Japan that the record company wants them to do a live album. Well, a little unsettling. They don't know that that's what they were planning on doing, but they wanted to do that and release it only in Japan as Priest in the East. Now, for the instrumentalists, that's not that big of a deal, but for Mr. Halford, this has some repercussions. First of which is that Rob suffers notoriously from sleep deprivation and has a difficult time, especially traveling. And this tour is very early in their tour, and the type of singing that he does and the way he does it, he's not as prepared and he's not as warmed up. And so what do we have? So we have these two dates. We have the 10th and the 15th of February. And it's interesting because when we start to look at them, live albums can be one of three things, the way I look at them. A live album can be a snapshot in time, a complete concert of a specific tour, i.e. All the World's a Stage, that tour, all the songs, everything. Or it can be a compilation, an amalgamation of tracks recorded over various tours, put together, i.e. exit stage left, multiple tours. So there is no cohesion from a full show. And then we get this third kind of delineation, which is the incomplete snapshot. And that's what we have here with Unleashed in the East. This is an incomplete snapshot. Of course, we all know that this was a single album release where, and we'll talk about that in a second, where most of us were going, this clearly should have been a double. So they start to do this. And as we get to the album, first of all, we have to mention we have Tom Allen on board now.
Yes.
And of course, we know Tom from the earliest Black Sabbath era. He was there at the board working with Sabbath. And of course, his run is a very strong and very prominent one, not unlike Martin Birch's with Maiden and Terry Brown, again with Rush. We see this producer who comes in and almost becomes that extra member who really wraps himself into that band and focuses solely on them. And although Martin did other things, once he kind of went to Maiden, that's kind of where he stayed. So what do we have here? We have this tremendously aggressive, wild, and strong live recording, full of energy, full of power. And we have to start, let's start with the album cover. And if you look at the album cover, we have to then say, and I've got a whole bunch of outtakes from Finn Costello, who took the photos. And the first thing we're going to notice, and it's important to point out, is that by the time this album is released, drummer Les Binks is already long gone. My understanding is that this was over the root of all evil, money, right? And that he didn't feel he was compensated properly and wasn't made a full member of the band. So he's gone. So we notice when they go to do the photo shoots, photographer Finn Costello says, stand in front of you can see the drums, but you're not going to see a drummer because he's not there. So all of them have Rob dead center in the drum kit, so there's no photo of Les. Interesting thing. When we get to the shows, and well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. All live albums open themselves up to serious scrutiny, and some earn reputations of being heavily doctored, and this is one of the biggest. So let's talk about that elephant. It is no secret, Rob Halford completely redid his entire vocals for this album, every note. And the purists will go, well, screw this, it's not live. Okay, so let's open up the floor here. And I will say with this caveat, when they did the recordings, the shows that they were doing were not as black and white as we think. We see a show date and we're like, okay, you had a date on the 10th, we had a date on the 15th. Well, the show on the 10th was a double show. They did 2 shows that day. Bands never do that anymore.
Right.
Why?
Wow.
Because it's ridiculous. It's brutal. It's overkill. But bands did it all the time. The early show, the late show, the early show, late show. Zeppelin, all those bands all did sometimes multiple shows in the same to get as many tickets as they could for a single visit or multiple visits to a location. So we have this kind of lining up of bad news. It's early in the tour. Rob's not warmed up. They don't know they're recording. He's doing multiple shows and his voice isn't very good. And there are bootlegs available of these shows. And the 15th is also available. And I was listening to the 9th the night before we came on here. It's rough. It's really rough. So he goes and redoes all of his vocals live in an atmosphere and kind of just does the whole thing down and nails the crap out of it. So the first question for us is, how live is it, and do we really care?
I don't care.
I
And I'll
think
tell you, I'm sorry, John, you want, okay, thank you,
No.
John. I don't care because it feels like a live performance the way Rob's vocals are added to the rest of the performance. All the music is live to the best of my knowledge. Am I
That's
correct?
my understanding as well. Yeah.
Okay. So it feels live. It has that feeling to me personally. I wish I was there. That's how it feels to me. Well, I've listened to enough live albums that, yes, a lot of the 70s live albums that we revere maybe weren't 100% live. That's okay. When it seems obvious that music stuff was done in the studio, and I could say this on a Live 3 by Kiss, I think you can tell clearly Paul's vocals were added later. That doesn't feel live to me. But when I listen to, just to give an example, one of the most revered albums of the 70s in a live setting is Peter Frampton, Frampton Comes Alive.
Right.
Now that I understand, a lot of that was done in the studio, but when I listen to that album, I feel like I'm at Winterland because the way it's recorded, how the crowd is singing along, how the band is recorded, it seems like I'm there. I'm at this great concert. I'm living this experience. That's the same feeling I get on Unleashed in the East. Okay. So Rob had to record all of his vocals again. It still feels live to me. The little ad libs he's throwing in feels like a live show to me.
Right.
So to me, yes, it doesn't matter to me. Look, as long as it feels live, that's good.
Johnny C.
Yeah. So, after it's been a while since I'd really listened to this album close, and I first, as I started going, I was like, this almost sounds too perfect to be a live album, and then obviously, okay, the vocals, okay, I get that, but kudos to the band though that musically they didn't have to really do anything there. You think about, I think of some of the live albums that I'm like really enamored with, and I think of like Kiss Alive,
Right.
and then supposedly the tweaks done to it, supposedly Bob Kulick played on it or something dumb. I don't know, but then you have Alive 2, which, they added the crowd noise to some of the songs because they did them in like sound checks, but they didn't actually play the songs live. So you have those kind of things. You have, I'm a big fan of the Yes songs, um, live album, the triple live album, which again, it's like the amalgamation of the tour because you had Bill Bruford on some tracks, you had Alan
Correct.
White on some tracks,
Right.
so it's not like one complete show. Now, if you want to spend the money for the Progeny series or set, I think it's called, where you get all the shows that the thing was from, hey, go for it. I admit I did that with probably one of the most accurate live albums that a lot of people think is probably one of the best live albums of all time, and that would be UFO's Strangers in the Night.
Yep. Yep.
And I admit I actually bought the box set with all the shows. Haven't listened to them all yet, but
Right there.
there you go. I see it. Yep. Yep. So I still haven't listened to all the shows on that, but from what I've listened to, I thought, oh my gosh, I would love to have been there.
Right.
So yeah, I'm the same way. I would like, kudos to Rob to being able to work the magic in the studio to play with the music and then overdub the vocal to it. Um, yeah, would I like to have heard the original recording? If it's as bad as what Rob says it is, it's probably, maybe I don't want to hear maybe I don't want to hear that. But I never got to see Priest live, so these are the closest examples I'll get.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, and you get some of their, to me, their best songs from
Here's-
from up to that time period.
Yeah, here's the way I wrap my head around it. And of course, as a massive Kiss fan, the whole Kiss Alive isn't alive thing has probably been the one that raises the most eyebrows. They're like, see, they're not good musicians. They're not this. But I will say this. I do a strong delineation. If other outside musicians had come in to redo their parts and they were labeled as Paul or Ace or whatever, that's wrong. That would be very wrong, and that would cross a line for me.
Absolutely.
Also, Kiss is on platform boots. They're running around like crazy. Are they going to miss a mic cue? Are they going to make a bad chord? Yeah, they're going to. And do they want to have that? Because here is the inherent conflict, gentlemen. A live performance by nature is of the moment. You experience it as it happens, and it remains in your memory forever, but it's not supposed to be this lingering reoccurrence until people started recording live shows. And now you have this posterity that's attached to it for a moment in time. They're in conflict with each other. If you're going to leave something out there forever, they're not going to do it subpar. Not for, it's kind of bad business. And so I say this, on Kiss Alive, was that Paul singing?
Yes.
Yeah. Did he do it later? Yeah. It's still Paul. So Paul has the talent. He has the skill. He has the ability. So I say this whenever somebody's critical of that, or Unleashed in the East, or Live and Dangerous, or any of these other ones that feel they've been completely doctored. So it's either one or the other. It's either a really great live album, or it's the best studio album they've ever done in their life. So make your pick. Am I unhappy with either premise? No.
Nope.
Bottom line is, I absolutely love it. And Mr. Music Nut nails it. It brings in a feeling, an emotion, a something. When I hear Paul sing that first line to 100,000 years on a live, every hair stands up, and I will 50 years ago and however many years I've got left, when I hear it, it'll do the exact same thing. And that's the point. So we have a band who put out this, and let's talk about the content and the length of it and everything else, because this is not unlike the Who's Live at Leeds, was very truncated and was very shortened to fit on a single release. So we have the original tracks, and then if we look up the set list, we find out, oh, you're missing some stuff. And not only are we missing some stuff, and here's the other thing that I look at, the songs are not in concert running order.
Yeah.
That kind of bugs me. I like to know the flow, even if it's truncated as best you can. I like to have some kind of flow to it. Okay. Exciter, Running Wild. Okay. That's the same. Sinner isn't third. Sinner's way down in the middle of the set. The tracks they've left off are Beyond the Realms of Death. And a lot of Priest fans would go, why?
Right.
Why? Really? White Heat, Red Hot. Why?
Yeah.
Now, Evil Fantasies and Take on the World, we mentioned them on the last show. Maybe, maybe not. But those were missing. And it took a reissue later on to add Rock Forever, Delivering the Goods, Hellbent for Leather, and Starbreaker. 3 tracks from that tour's album. Okay. Now, I don't know any reason, and I've heard no explanation. So why do you believe this was put as a single? Was it for cost, or because it was only intended to be a souvenir for the Japanese and not internationally released? I don't want to say go on the cheap, but make it as little expense as it can be. And then to only find out, oh, wait, now it's going out and it's a single. What do you think?
I'm thinking they didn't really make their name yet in America at that point. Whereas you think of other bands that came out with doubles like Kiss. Kiss was gaining momentum. Kiss had Dressed to Kill had hit the top 40 album charts before a live one was released, I believe. Some of these other bands had already had success before they put out the double live album. Peter Frampton, he did a little bit, like more than Priest, because people knew him from Humble Pie. Okay, so there it makes sense to do the double.
But nobody was buying his solo records, John.
Well, the last ones, again, with that, not much, correct, but more than Judas Priest. But were they gold albums? No, they were not. It's weird. I think I think it's because they thought they probably established them more with a single, because most people wouldn't have known Judas Priest at that point. So you could say they're trying to why would we put this unknown band and give them a double live album? Kiss were gaining momentum. Frampton was known. Okay, he didn't have hits on his own yet.
Right.
But I think that's what now should have been a double. Yes.
At least in a
Scorpions.
subsequent reissue, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like Scorpions. Okay. They had less traction in the US than Judas Priest did.
Right.
Before Tokyo Tapes.
But again, it was Japanese.
And it was Japanese, but it was a double.
Yeah.
I would say, yes, maybe you could say a little on the cheap, but I think they thought maybe the best way to establish them would be with a single album. But one thing I do have an issue with, though, is why is it focused so much? As great as Sad Wings is, why is that the focus of the live album when the new album is hell bent for leather here in the US and you only have 2 songs on it, and you have 9 songs on the original version of Unleashed in the East, and we have 2 cover songs, as good a job as they've done with them. So I guess I'm kind of going a few different directions here, but I think the reason they might have kept this a single, maybe they thought, we don't want to invest too much into them yet. We don't know if they're going to break. So let's give them a single.
Yeah, because really Hellbent for Leather only cracked what, 170, 175 and the Billboard charts.
Right.
So it's not like they were breaking the Billboard charts too quickly. So, but again, I'm with you guys. Why not put more of the material from the last album? That makes no sense to me. But and then you get the 2 cover songs. Well, they're not getting the royalties from it. Joan Baez and Peter Green are. So, so they won't be getting, so that's 2 less songs that they're going to get the royalties for. Yeah, okay, you have a couple songs from Sad Wings. Well, they still didn't own, yeah, okay, 4 songs. So they still don't even own the rights to that stuff.
That's a good point too,
they can still play the songs, but they don't really necessarily own the rights. So yeah, so now Tyrant sounds, well, and we'll get into that, but so they had to make the song sound a little different, maybe, and that's why they could maybe get something back from it. But Gull still had control over those albums. So yeah, there's a lot of head scratchers with this one. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one, but
well, I think if there's an album that's out there, and then we always have a handful, there's the Foghat, and when Budokan Complete finally came out, people were like, okay, there's the rest of it. That Robin Trower live was just a single. The Frank Marino Mahogany Rush live was just a single. there's all these that we looked at that kind of go, gosh, we really would have loved to have more than that. Even Deep Purple's Made in Europe was only a single, and that was the Coverdale Burn Stormbringer era, compared to, Made in Japan, which was a double. So, I mean, it's really interesting how that happens, but I think this one is more deserving of a reissue. Bring all the tracks back. If you can fix them, whatever you need to do. But I want a double, and I want this entire show of 17 tracks in order. And those are the things that I want to hear. So hopefully someone down the line is in these reissue world is going to do that and bring that out. So let's talk about the differences. And Mr. MD there, you were going to do some highlighting on the differences between what the live versions brought versus the studio versions that we were familiar with before it came out, sir.
So when I listened to, I heard a lot of it. I heard this first because I bought this on cassette when I was like 15, 16. They're more energetic on the live versions. Certainly they played them in a faster tempo, which you're naturally going to do in a live setting.
Right.
Running Wilds, that's a little faster, but some of the little screams that Rob is doing, some of the ad-libs make it feel live. So that's the one the version I'm always going to go back to. Exciter, which is the opener, the thing that always jumps out at me. Number one, yes, this is faster, and I think that Les is even busier on here. Les is throwing in a lot more fills on this.
He is.
This is what really jumps out to me. The crowd singing "Fall to Your Knees and Repent if you please," and that makes me feel like I'm there. That makes it the more superior version to me. Some of these others, like Sinner, yeah, I mean, there's more guitar acrobatics, I think, on the live version of Sinner.
Yeah, KK is going nuts.
He is. And a lot more use of echo with Rob's voice. Ripper's, just a little faster, but it's similar, and it just ends pretty abruptly. Green Man Leashy, because I think the Hellbent was just coming out. I think with the album you're promoting, you're probably going to play it more straight. If you're promoting a new album, you're not going to deviate too much from what you just put out a few months ago in this case.
Right.
So outside of that ending, I think the ending is a little different on the live version than the studio, but other than that, I think the play's still the same.
Yeah.
Diamonds and Rust, you got the with the echo and all that. That's a little different. They play it way faster. But again, it smokes. Victim of Changes. Rob shines like the sun on the original. Here, some of those screams that during the live version are insane. Musically, it's the same, maybe a little faster, but I think it's Rob's performance is definitely what's different. Genocide, they stretch out. They do that long instrumental part there, that really driving pre-Iron Maiden gallop there,
right,
in the beginning before they go into the main song, and it rips, and it's always going to be the version I'm always going to like. Now Tyrant, you don't have that low voice in the chorus. Tyrant. Yeah, you just hear Rob just singing it straight, faster too. It's near, it's almost like near punk, but but
let's right. She talked on again. That's right. Oh my god.
Yeah, Right, exactly. Oh my gosh. And then you have the crowd going ballistic during the last bridge of the song.
When they break it down, yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
killer. Like, so the difference is, I mean, unless you, if you don't have a lot of experience with both albums, you might be thinking there's not much, but there's little differences. There's little differences that make this really stand out as a live album. But like you, Peter, yes, like we need the 2 disc version with the original set list.
Right.
When I was thinking, while you were talking, I was thinking, well, when Little Feat put out Waiting for Columbus,
Mhm.
they changed that. They put that out. That wasn't the order of the songs that night. And they recorded 4 shows for that. And there were a lot of songs that didn't make it. They went and they put it out again, like the original. And then they added bonus tracks that didn't make the live album. But if you go and you buy that album now, if you bought it in 78, the last song on the album would be Old Folks Boogie. Well, the Old Folks Boogie was one of the first songs they played that night.
Mm.
So later on they rectified that in remastered versions, and now they have an 8-disc version right over here,
Right.
where they have all the shows that they picked and all the songs they played, they recorded from that. Judas Priest got to do the same thing, no question. Yeah. Like a UFO, or even you like something like UFO. Give us all of them, but maybe give us what we would do vocally. But
well, you know what though? Here's the thing. Deep Purple, and famously and has said, and supported by Martin Birch and everything at the time, that the shows they recorded, the 3 nights in August of 72, there are no overdubs on that whatsoever. 0. Ian Gillan's voice was not up to par health-wise, but he still rattles that off. It's insane. The energy and the power that came off that. Now, when they released Live in Japan, they did all 3 nights and released all 3 shows. Now, as a Deep Purple fan, the beauty I love about them live is that night to night, you never knew what to expect, because what mood is Blackmore in? What fireworks and battle are they going to have? What improv is going to come out of nowhere? And what song was 5 minutes yesterday is now 9 minutes tonight because we just went off. And you know that they're live because every pie, every mistake, every ham is in there. Of the 3 nights that they recorded, Richie blew the intros to Smoke on the Water twice.
Ooh.
Ruined them. He hits one, he messes up the riff, hits an open note, and it just goes, meh, and you hear Ian Gill in the back laughs because it's just a mess. There's bad notes, there's intro, but it's got so much reality to it. And then they picked the songs that worked, because they're not going to put out a Smoke on the Water where Richie doesn't do the intro right. So they did multiple nights and they were able to do that. But instead of overdubbing, they were able to pull from other shows where they nailed it the other night.
Right.
You mentioned something, and sorry, I'm taking your time here, JC. I'll shush you in a second.
You're good. You're good.
The Judas Priest is not Zeppelin, and they're not Deep Purple, and they do not stretch these songs. They do an intro like Genocide or May Add, that kind of thing. Look, even the break, in the middle of Victim of Changes, before they go to the U-Band, Foolin', has a tendency to go super long now live, and where a record, it just follows it right straight through. But each night, they're trying to replicate what they did the best the night before, and that's what they're delivering. So 2 different bands on a totally different platforms. So each individual night, you're not going to get really that big of a difference. KK and Glenn are not going to change their solos. If they do, it's very, very minimally, because they've got a template and they follow that template. And I think that's really important about them, because that's how show to show, and I've heard a lot of shows from these tours where a vocal note here, or Rob, and look, Rob's vocals are not easy. This is just horrible. And think about it, he could probably never hear himself on stage. He's jumping vocally all over the place. And then eventually he has more problems with drinking and other things, which aren't going to help. But you're going to get those things. So, I love hearing those bootlegs, because I love hearing the genuine rawness of it and how they are fundamentally still so solid. And then I can forgive if you hit a note and it's out of pitch. Because if I was at the show, 99.9% of the people out there, first of all, A, didn't know it was out of tune. Second, sang the note in their head and made Rob nail it anyways. And 3, are never going to hear it played back to them and never have any evidence that it was wrong in the first place. So the show's successful to 99.9% of the people who were there. So,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So to answer the question, what I noticed differences, I mean, Tyrant's the one that really stands out the most as being like the most different. And again, it's just, they just sped that up ridiculously fast. And then, because you can even, I mean, same with Diamonds and Rust too. You get, it's like the,
A little faster here.
yeah, it's definitely faster. It gets the, what I would call the Bruce Dickinson complex. Every time I try to hear him do "Hallowed Be Thy Name," they just keep speeding it up faster and faster and faster, and he just can't get all those words in. And Diamonds and Rust was that great example of that. That with that one line where it's just like, it's almost like a Freddie Mercury kind of delivery, but he's just having to rattle it so much faster that it almost kind of loses that effect a little bit. But you do miss like I said, the Tyrant. You do miss that in Tyrant. But what they replaced it with was, I thought, was actually pretty darn good. I kind of like, I had completely forgotten how different they were studio to live like that. And I'm guessing, I don't know how often they still do Tyrant live. That's probably how they do it. They probably don't do that low register stuff anymore.
right.
So,
Well,
that's really pretty much all I can add to that. So
I'd like to point out, because we made a point of mentioning it on the previous record, because Tom is there, and we talked about how moving forward, just one album later, barely half a year total time, Ian Hill is already gone sonically. He's gone.
Yes. Yeah, you hear him quite well on this album. And yeah.
This is guitar. This is about KK and Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, that's what it's been about. The wall of sound that these two create. And one of the fun things is that I had the cassette and the LP, and I took the cassette one time and I grabbed one of my sister's things and grabbed it to take it outside to shoot hoops with it. And I kept listening to it going, this sounds weird. Because all of a sudden I realized that my sister's little tape deck was mono. So I'm losing one of the channels. So I'm only getting one guitar, because they are absolutely separated. Hard pan left, hard pan right. And KK's on the left. And, the panning can be done either from the audience standpoint or from the band standpoint. And from this one, it's mixed as if you were in the audience looking at the stage. So visually, Ken is stage right. Glenn is stage left, which is our right channel, our left channel. So I quickly went inside, put my LP on, and went to my receiver and just started playing with the balance selector. And I will tell you, I spent probably 6 months going back and forth just listening to one guy's channel, because it was so creative and was so interesting and so fascinating. And then I would move the balance just enough that the other one was kind of like an echo in the other channel. So I could hear how they blended, but it still had a focus. It was so awesome. And that's the thing that strikes me the most. Yes, the drums are way more advanced than they were on Sad Wings. There's no question about that. But it's what Ken and Glenn are doing. That it is so metal. It is the template. It is everything that came after them that had a twin guitar attack modeled that. That was the, okay, if we want to do anything, we want it to make it sound like that. And then at the beginning of Genocide, you have the long intro and they go, nah, 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 and Ken, now it's twice as fat and the whole sonic spectrum explodes. And we talked about it on the previous, the solo sections, the trade-off in Manalishi is epic. The guitars are so unbelievably just close to just endlessly feeding back, which I love, which I absolutely love because they're right on the edge, which just gives you that laser focus kind of cut to it. And that's what Tom promoted.
Yeah.
And
to me, and I always felt like KK's rhythm playing over the solos was a little bit more raw.
Mm-hmm.
And Glenn was still pretty precision. Yeah, he was still pretty strong, but KK was definitely a little bit on the raw side. Not sloppy raw, but
No.
there was a certain rawness to his rhythm playing than more so than Glenn's.
Well, it's that beauty of two people who take the same part and one of them plays just slightly ahead of the beat and the other one plays just slightly behind it. They're not out of tempo, but it creates this tension where you can delineate and clearly hear that there are two players, but with one presentation. And that's absolutely, I love how that sounds on this record.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I read where how one of the things that they like to do would be, say you're playing a C chord, like, so Glenn will play it on the 3rd position.
Yep.
KK will play it on the 8th position.
Yes.
And you get that fatness of the sounds of the guitars. You get the two things together. I employed that in my own when I was in a band and we recorded some tracks, and I had plenty of time, and I was like, hey, can I do the rhythm track again, but I'm going to play it in a different position? And I listened back to those songs and I think they just sound fantastic. From my personal perspective, maybe the band didn't think so, but I liked it.
To a novice, the notion of 2 C chords are just 2 C chords, right? Well, no, they're not, because just watch somebody who plays Paranoid down in the open section and then listen to the way Tony plays it up on the 12th fret.
Exactly.
They are absolutely night and day different. Same notes, but different timbre, different tonality, and different impact and different delivery. So we all feel that this really deserves a proper anniversary reissue, put the whole thing back together, put it in concert order, and give us this ultimate souvenir of these great shows that happened over in Japan. I have a story, if I may. The record shop that was down the street from us that I have mentioned last show and on every show I've been on when we talk about collecting. It was a bike ride down the street. Took us 15-20 minutes to get down there. It was a Flipside Records, Wheaton, Illinois. And we went in there probably August, somewhere in there. And we're getting stuff, and we notice on the wall, somebody is painting a mural, this thing. We don't know what it is. As we go and we see him fill it in, and we see it fill it in, all of a sudden we realize that somebody had hand painted on the wall in more than life-size dimensions the cover of Unleashed in the East. And I'm like, whoa, now what does that mean? Well, all of a sudden, at some point, and I'm trying to actually find the date, and I will find it somewhere. Turns out that one of the weekends we didn't go, Priest showed up for a record signing in our little Flipside Records in Wheaton, Illinois, outside of Chicago, in front of the mural.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oops.
Oh,
Oops.
Oh.
We're like, wow, what was going on? Oh yeah, the band was here.
Oh.
We missed it.
Mm.
We missed it.
Mm.
So that album cover is a source of constant
Yeah.
rubbing to me, because like, I mean, you know, it's just like, oh crap.
How did Twisted Sister put it? You need it like a knife in the back?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
So
man.
that was just one of those missed opportunity things. And you're like, oh well. But I mean, we got the album and we loved it and everything. So
Oh, yeah.
how do you guys rank this? Do you rank it versus the studio records? Do you just do it on its own, or how do you do it?
We ranked them on their own, more or less, I believe, John. Because
Yeah, I think that's what we did with Wasp. I don't think we didn't include
Correct.
that in the studio records, but we did give them a ranking.
Yes, we did.
Go ahead.
It's a 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't, it's like I said, this sounds too perfect to be a live album. So, and to me, they picked some of the best songs to put on it. And then you get and then of course we didn't even touch on the reissue part.
Right.
And so you get the Rock Forever, Delivering the Goods, Hell Bent for Leather, and Starbreaker. I'm like, first off, you got 3 dynamic tracks from Hell Bent for Leather, Killing Machine,
a deep cut,
and a deep cut, from Staying 7%. Thank you. Yeah,
right.
7%, which sounded fantastic. Yeah, you missed out the collapse in the chorus, but it sounded great live, and you didn't get that on the original release, but you get them. So we're getting a little closer. Well, we still got that makes it 13 tracks. So we still got 4 or 5 tracks to go. You said
17 on the original.
17. So so you still got a few more tracks to go. And I think of all of those, I think Beyond the Realms of Death would be the one that I would definitely gotta hear.
And I've heard the bootlegs of White Heat, and it's just ridiculously aggressive.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's really good. I can't look at the original 9, and even though they are quote covers, by this time I just look at Diamonds, and especially Manalishi, as a Priest song. I don't look at them not like, like Long Tall Sally on Tokyo Tapes. I don't want that.
Or Hound Dog, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Or, Queen every once in a while early on used to pull out, Jailhouse Rock and the medley and stuff. Yeah, no, I put your own stuff on there. So I can't really say, I mean, if I want Delivering the Goods, what am I taking off?
Yeah.
I mean, that's so hard, and it because one, it's so ingrained and entrenched, but as most people who listen to Priest a lot will tell you, that they'll gravitate to the versions they think are the most definitive. And, when we were talking about the separation of the recordings, I think it was heavy laden into Sad Wings because Priest had an opportunity to represent those songs. That says, okay, we were low budget, we were this, you weren't getting the power, we weren't getting, the way we wanted to really translate them. Well, here's the perfect medium. Here we are, full blown, full volume, full everything. And everybody responded, because there are a lot of people who have said, I don't listen to Sad Wings because the versions I like are over on this other thing over here, and you don't go back to them.
Right.
And you just don't go back to them. So I think that's one of the reasons why they did that.
Yeah. So here's a question I want to throw out. Okay, so we talked about the Les Banks situation.
Yes.
What if that never came up? And what if they were able to actually, smooth everything over and everything worked out fine and Les stays in the band? What would this sound like? What would later albums sound like? Because Les's style is completely different from Dave Holland's.
Right.
Dave Holland's not quite the double bass guy
Nope.
like Les would be.
Nope.
So how would Les have played on this?
Well, he was a little more reined in between from if you go from Stained Class to Hellbent for Leather, he reined it in a little. I mean a little.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, I don't know if he could have played it that straight like Dave Holland did. I think some of those you mentioned later albums, maybe something like Defenders would have been a heavier album. British Steel, makes you wonder, like maybe something like Rapid Fire would have been heavier, but maybe Rapid Fire could have been heavier, but then you wonder,
or Free Will Burning.
Yes, like the heavier tracks, it would have added up a notch. But then do you think to yourself, how does he play Metal Gods? Well, yeah, maybe he throws in a more syncopation,
Or Living After Midnight,
or Living After Midnight, or United,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or Metal
Yeah.
Gods.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So there you go, people.
It's
There's
a
a
question.
question for you out there.
I will say this, as the drummer.
Being a drummer, yes,
That's right. I am a massive fan of Dave Holland, and I always have been. And they are very different players. Les tends to be more of a, what I call, he plays on top. He's more of a hands guy.
Mm-hmm.
He lives up on around the kit. Yes, he's got his bass drums and everything else, but Dave Holland comes from a completely different school. He comes from foundational. He comes from the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
And his snare drum delivery and where his pocket sits, and we can talk about the chicken and the egg, and we always have to do that. When you have a new member who comes in, do you write to accommodate the new member, or do you have this material and the new member transfers or accommodates the material that's already there?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if Les is already there, are they writing differently? I don't know. But if the material's all the same for the hypothetical you raised, Dave left more space. He had that absolute backbeat that was much, much heavier than Les's was. And going into the 80s where that was going, I think just his straightforward, slam it out, 4/4. He played simple fills. Most of his fills were on the snare drum. Bang, 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 which pushed like crazy. He would do some tom fills, not a lot. He could double bass if he needed to, but he left enough room that British Steel ends up sounding heavier with actually less drumming. That's the way I looked at it. So if the gods were doing what they're doing, I guess everything fell in place like it was supposed to. But would have Les been able to have played those things? Absolutely. And as we said, some of the maybe more aggressive, faster tracks, he may have added something different. But I think as beautiful as Les is, and this may sound odd, his drumming was the least metal element of the band. And you say, well, he had double bass. He doesn't play like a metal drummer.
Right.
He plays like a lighter handed fusion drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Holland was a rock and roll drummer. And that's what Priest latched onto and took his strength and wrote tracks around it. And we already obviously know they're going much more commercial. But even you can't tell me that the stuff on Vengeance and Defenders is not heavy. It's exceptionally heavy. And what happens? The drums keep getting bigger because that's what Tom did with them.
Yeah.
That boom. So yeah, I like the way it panned out, but it's a very interesting.
So Dave Holland would be like a Phil Rudd amplified up a few notches.
Yeah. He plays what the song needs. He doesn't play any more than that. And he's like, get out of the way.
Yeah.
Another thing just popped in my head. What if Les Binks used that restraint that you need on the Rage, which Dave Holland did so well?
Right.
Especially when those slow quasi reggae parts of this song,
right.
which a few bands were doing with some songs like Scorpions and Rush.
Right.
I don't think Les could have did anything better on that, because with there it's about space.
And here's the question we don't know the answer, so we won't ponder it today, but it's just something to fester in your head. Why was Les selected in the first place? Nobody's asked that question. Why was Les Binks brought in as the drummer? And they've had all kinds of drummer problems, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
You had a different drummer almost on every record, right? Up to that point.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Les was the first one to do 2 in a row with Stained and Killing Machine. And he played more like Simon does.
That's
So
where I was thinking when you first
Hey,
were
he's-
asking a question. I'm thinking he's a little more like Simon.
He was more like Simon. Now, would they have preferred if they could have somehow convinced him, hey, Simon, you want to come join Judas Priest? And he would have brought that to the band? Now, there's an interesting what if.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But, personality notwithstanding, maybe they would have been perfectly happy with the way he played and what he was doing, and they would have just gone into British Steel with him, and it would just be different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I think.
All right, folks. There's a nice little round table discussion on Unleashed in the East. Y'all love this album. If you've been listening to the Judas Priest, you've been watching this series, I'm already curious to see what y'all are going to say about this one. So you know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, put it in the comments. What do you think about this album? We are going to see the music professor Peter Jones back on Ram It Down. And I know he's got some good stuff with that one. So we will be welcoming him back for that. Next week, we're going to be doing, of course, next week will be British Steel. We got another guest for that one. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag on that one just yet. We're just going to keep that one under wraps for now. Let's just keep it kind of quiet for a little bit. But the Year of the Priest, baby. This series is getting to be fun. Let's see, Peter. What else new is coming up that we need to be plugging for you?
Oh, well,
as far as something new.
Well, let's see. I've got, of course, there's always some contrarian stuff in the mix. But a lot of stuff has come out recently, either between the Contrarians and here now, and as Rock Daydream Nation with Mr. Kerr. We tackled Perfect Strangers. Was it the comeback record we all thought it was, or should be, or could be? You decide for yourself. And we even had a small follow-up one because we had so much material, we threw it in as an add-on that just came out. So we're working on that. He and I are already got some more things in the works that we're going to hit the schedule with. The Contrarian ones, we've sent out a lot of things. We We did a series that we did a show that we're hoping to do a series on every month, Best of the Best, where we get a collection of a group of 4, where we go album by album and you pick your favorite song. It doesn't have to be by any other criteria other than it's the one that you prefer the most. It's not about hits. It's not about lists. It's not about anything. It's just your personal feelings. And it's very interesting when you go through 20 Rush albums, how all over the place that was. And, when we add more divergent artists, we'll see where that goes. There's a fun show that I did with Martin, commenting on his Goldmine top 20 drummers who improved their bands. You can check that out. We have the rise and fall of glam metal. And yeah, I'm the get off the lawn guy, and I wear that proudly. So, I'm getting some comments like, I'm not sure I like that Pete guy. And I'm like, that's okay. And one of them said I talk like Snowden, and I'm not sure what that means. But
yeah, I didn't get that either. I saw that.
I'm like, yeah, that's okay. All opinions are valid. So we did a show on Lucifer's Friend. If you don't know that band, check out their debut album. If you like anything early 70s hard rock, you've got to check these guys out. Beautiful blend between Sabbath and Uriah Heep, with some Purple thrown in, with one of the era's best singers in John Lawton. Check him out. Yeah. Check that out. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and
there you go. We're still waiting for the Decline of the Western Civilization panel show to come out. I don't know when that's coming out, but
that's probably they're probably going, I don't know, can we put that out? Because if I was the get off my lawn guy on the other one, this one was,
I think we all were. I think in some way, shape, or form, we were all.
It was a hatchet job. We were just ripping stuff up, and we were just
pretty much
burning bridges behind us, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that one was a pretty tough one, but it was still a good episode. But hats off to Peter Kerr for that wonderful interview with Bob Daisley.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, what a great episode of that interview that was. And Bob Daisley, so much more than just Randy Rhoads era Ozzy. So much more. It's like, for everybody who just wants to hear him do all the Randy stories, just go read For Fact's Sake, if you want to do that. But let's dive in deep to, the Uriah Heep stories, the Rainbow stories, the Gary Moore stories.
He has seen it all.
He has seen it all. No, and just a wonderful hour and 20 minutes.
And kudos to him that he was able to just continually just keep working. Mm-hmm. And it was always sought after, and he was always an asset to every situation he came in on.
Yep.
And most of the time it was all circumstances way out of his control as to how things imploded. And he just stayed professional. Yep. And he did his job and was a great musician. And man, that'll always get a tip of the hat from me, because that's how it should be done.
That's how it should always be done. So, so kudos to go look that one up. John, you're deep dive on Y&T with Tim Darling that just dropped over the weekend. You guys kind of ripped apart the second Y&T album a little bit there. So still a good still a good show though. I still enjoyed that. That's been a fun series to watch. So
yeah, thanks, John. We filmed 2 more shows today. We got 6 in the can right now. We've already done the shows through In Rock We Trust, so we're halfway through the studio albums right now. So catch that every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our next one will be this coming Saturday when we talk about Y&T's beloved 3rd album, Earthshaker.
There you go.
Yeah, so we'll have that, and I have a 1977 show, top 10 songs from 1977. We're going to have a panel for that on Grant's Rock Warehouse. That'll be this Thursday. It will be February 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So just check us out. There's 5 of us going to be on there. We all have quite eclectic lists, so it'll be a lot of fun. And I got stuff lined up with Peter Kerr on Rock Daydream Nation. I guess he thinks, punk. John will talk about punk. So, so I'm going to talk about the Ramones.
There you go.
One of their deeper albums the following week, and then he'll probably put that out after a week or two. But yeah, a lot of good stuff coming up. Thanks.
Yeah, I didn't turn any songs for that 1977 show, so
Oh, okay.
I guess I'm not getting involved on that one. I didn't get it. I completely forgot about it. Well, I didn't forget about it. It just got away from me. I'm like, I don't, we wouldn't even know
You
what
got
to.
a lot on your plate, though.
But yeah, just a lot of life stuff. But the shows like this, folks, and with what y'all saw with the Royal Rumble review, and Joe Beck and I from Average Waste Some Time with Average Joe's. He and I are going to do something this week where we're going to talk about our live wrestling experiences, because he was at Royal Rumble at the arena. I was just at SmackDown, so we're going to compare the live shows compared to what we saw on television. So that'll be kind of fun. It's always fun to do something with Joe. Pete, you know about that. So
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, John.
Yeah.
If you want to see a great show,
Okay.
check out the show that Peter and Joe did on Wasting Some Time with Average Joe about their stories from the Chicago Roxy in the 80s.
Oh,
To
I need
me,
to
that
I need to
was
go look
that
that.
was pure ear candy.
Oh,
Oh,
that's very kind.
I do need to look that up. Yeah, I would definitely get a kick out of that, because that's good stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They,
you get two Chicagoans like us who like to talk, and it's it had no script whatsoever. It was just
sometimes that's the best.
it's just so random because one story led us to three stories, and it was just like, oh wait, do you remember this? Were you there? No, I was gonna go, but darn it, oh, but
yeah.
He's like, oh crap, and it's so funny because you think, oh well, you'd have a lot of similar things. Look, it's a big city, folks.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
there's only so many days in the week and so many hours in the day, and there's a lot of stuff that you go back and go, oh, I was aware of it, couldn't make it, or wasn't available, schedules didn't work out, or whatever. But one of us had figured it, and then we say something that triggered the other one. They go, I remember that, and you're just like, so that's a fun one.
Well,
So,
it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that, Peter, because I don't know if you've heard John and I talk about this, but John and I have actually been at two concerts together.
okay,
We just didn't know it.
you didn't know it, yeah.
John's first concert, which was Motley Crue and Loudness, Ag Hall, or no, the Allentown Fairgrounds in Allentown, Pennsylvania, August 13th, 1985.
85, yeah.
So Theater of
Thunder in
Pain
the East.
tour and Thunder in the East. Loudness
Yep.
Loudness was amazing. I would go on record with that. But that
I've already long stipulated on certain channels where I'm probably banned that Motley didn't stand a chance because Loudness blew them way.
Oh gosh.
Yep.
They just blew them way off the stage. So no, I would join you with that.
Nobody's following Akira.
No. But yeah, but John and I were at that show together, and he was just in one part and I was at another.
Right.
And then in 1995, I think it was, up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, a place called Montage Mountain, we saw Ozzy together. Again, he was in one section and I was in another. And Prong and Filter were the opening bands.
Yep.
So Ozzy unfortunately sounded awful.
He was awful. Yeah.
Band sounded great.
Joe Holmes kicked ass, but
yeah, Joe Holmes was amazing, but poor Ozzy. I heard a soundboard recording of it on YouTube, and it was anyway, not to beleaguer that, but there you go. So we were actually at two concerts together. We just didn't know each other at the time. But
that's funny.
Like I said, the third, there's going to be a third, and I'm really hoping I can work it out to where I can come up and we can be watching Saxon and Uriah Heep together. Actually, arm to arm band, headbanging to headbanging, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And Nick Squire's going to be there.
Nick Esquire's going to be there too. So that's so that'll be fun. So anyway, Unleash the D's, folks. The Year of the Priest. Next week is Sting, British Steel. Right. Let us know what you think. Until then, let's rock forever. We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.